This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a dedicated fantasy football content creator. You will find his work at Dynasty Pros Football, Dynasty Nerds, the QB List, and Front Office Pros. It's my pleasure to welcome Dustin Ludke to the show.
Hey, Kev, thanks for having me on. I've been really looking forward to this. I love this podcast. When I see that tweet comes out, I'm like, all right, I'm going to queue it up. It's one of the first things I will listen to in the mornings when it's out. So I'm excited. This has been on my bucket list of podcasts to get on for a while.
That's that melts my heart, my man. No, I love to hear that. And obviously it's a pleasure to have you on. You were my saving grace at the expo. That was a fun experience. But seriously, without you, that couldn't have happened. So basically, we were at the Kings Classic. Yep. I had the honor. I talked to Bob about being involved in helping out a little bit, and so I got to run the draft board for the Jim Brown division. So much fun. I love all those people. Great group of guys, obviously, for sure. But the funniest thing is the first year that they were doing a digital draft board.
Yes.
I've always used Fan Draft. I like Fan Draft, and so I was like, all right, this should be good. I had yet to do an auction in that format. Yeah. And so you picked up on it immediately, probably before I picked up on it, how difficult that was going to be to keep up with the timing of it all. So
because the way they were drafting, you had it set because the way Kings Classic work is they do a snake draft, and then they do an auction draft. And the way they were nominating players was not in the same order that it was on the draft board. So like 2 or 3 picks in, you were like, I have to go in and figure out who's nominating and put in the nomination price. And it was just like, and you were quickly getting behind. Like it was like 3 or 4 picks in. You're like, and everybody's like, what's going? And love the guys doing it, but some of them were just like, what's going on? And we're like, hold on. So then I was like, let me grab paper, and I was like, all right, I'll just start writing all the picks down. Like, so I literally had to write down player and how much into whom, right? Because it was just, and Corey Parsons did a great job being the auctioneer. It was really great for us as far as like trying to write like, hey, are you guys good? Yep, we're good. And I was like, hey guys, we'll get to it. And then there's just some things like you couldn't nominate someone for $1 and you had to go in and change it. And then it all worked out in the end. It was great. I mean, I was going to be there to watch it anyway. So that's just me. Like if I see a need, I'm like, let me help out. Let me jump in and help out. Like I'm not doing anything anyway. I enjoy tracking that kind of stuff. People who know me know I have a ton of spreadsheets for fantasy football and other things. I'm in a Survivor pool, the show Survivor. And I have a spreadsheet for that where I track picks and confessional counts, and it's color coded. So I love that. So I'll take notes any day of the week.
Well, you were huge. I mean, seriously, I had just done the redraft one, right? It's 2-3 hours long, it's a couple hours long. Settled down for this one, and then before I know it, I'm like I don't know what's going to happen. And you're right, it was them the way that they, instead of they wanted to go a certain order, but it was outside of the pick order. So yeah, it kind of started off rough, but we got through it. I couldn't have done it without you, that's for sure.
And it was cool to see, right, the evolution on paper. I could go, man, Mahomes was nominated, went for, let's say, $30. Then 10 picks later, Hurts was nominated. He went for $35. And then 10 picks after that, it was Josh Allen. He went for $25 just because out of budgets and how the scarcity. So it was interesting to see that in that flow of the auction draft.
Yeah, auction drafts are awesome. I mean, it's definitely, if you have the time to make that happen in your league, it's highly recommended, just because obviously it does take a little more time to get it done, but it's fair as it gets, and there's so much extra strategy involved. So I highly recommend auction, and if you need an auctioneer, Corey Parsons was phenomenal, right? So
yeah, great pacing from Corey. Just like, I got 3 over here, going once, going twice. All right, sold, and like, all right, next, let's just go.
Great.
So.
That's great. Yeah. So obviously, again, welcome to the show. I'd love to hear more about your background. When did you discover your passion for football?
I mean, I feel like football has always been in my life. As you can't tell, I'm a Bills fan. This is actually my starter jacket from the 90s when I was a teenager. My name is sewn into it because me and my sister are the same one. I'm from originally outside Philadelphia. My mom's family's all from right outside Buffalo in Lockport, New York. So growing up, it was always Bills. Now you're talking 90s Bills, Kelly. Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith. I was in like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade when they were going to Super Bowl. So it was just like that pivotal time of me growing into it, pivotal time for the Bills. And then I started collecting baseball cards, as most of us did in the 90s. I actually worked at a card shop 2 nights a week. I worked Monday nights and Thursday nights. I literally worked from 4 to 8. I made $10, plus they gave me basically free food, which was McDonald's because I was across the street. And I would just spend my $10 on packs. So they would give me $10 on the door, and I go, here, just put it back. I'm taking these 3 packs or whatever it is. And so I still have thousands of cards in my mom's house, just, that are all worthless now because, right, the 90s area was just junk. But, you're buying stuff. You're going, oh, I got an Emmitt Smith. I got a Troy Aikman. It was before the days of autographs and patches. It was, you're hoping to get a special insert. So it was just cool. And then you learn about other sports. And we just had guys come in with all this other knowledge and just learning from these people who knew the game. I worked with the father of the owner of the store, who was probably at that point in his 70s. So he just had this wealth of knowledge. So just talking to him, if there's no one coming in, you just talk sports, and he's talking about players and Walter Payton and, Jim Brown. And so just loved the Bills. And obviously the Bills being so good, kind of fell in love with with the game, obviously a vested rooted interest, and just kind of been a Bills fan my whole life, and just have started to love football since then.
I love it. Yeah. I dressed up for you. Just want to make you feel welcome.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, there's nothing like the nostalgia of those old card shops back in that era. Something special, going to the card shop and getting, saving up for packs of cards and you just
we're
never
trying
knew
to find that one you didn't have. We had guys that would come in and they'd have their checklist of I need card 70 in this set, and you go through a box and look for them. Our guy did pack battles where I would buy a pack, he would open a pack, and whoever had the best card would win both packs worth of cards. Pricing cards, looking at the Beckett to see what things are worth this month versus last month. And then it started being more collectibles. I remember starting lineups were coming out, and the brouhaha over those. I remember a Dennis Rodman came out one year, and there was 4 different ones with 4 different hair colors. And the pink was the super rare one, and the blue one was the common one. There was green, there was, I think, yellow, and it was, which one did we get in our case? And we were calling other shops. Just that kind of stuff just became like, I can't believe people are buying this stuff, but I understand the why you want to collect it.
Well, you're speaking my language because, man, I had so many starting lineups.
Yep.
Instead of playing with action figures and whatnot, I'd simulate football games and baseball games with those particular toys. Special memories for sure. So I love that. That's it's kind of how you got that passion brewing. And those Bills, I mean, gosh, I loved that team. I was as a Seattle sports fan, the Seahawks were pretty lousy. And so I learned early to just, to love players and jump on bandwagons and support players and teams that I thought were fun to watch. And those Bills, I mean, in my opinion, it's got to be the best team to never win a Super Bowl. Tragic the way that they lost those 3 straight. You mentioned those guys, and obviously you got like Cornelius Bennett and
Steve Tasker, even Marv Levy, the coach. And my aunt and uncle had season tickets at the time. My aunt knew one of the Buffalo Jills, which is their cheerleaders. So we would go to games. I mean, I went to training camp. I have autographed shirts. We just go to training camp and get people to sign stuff. Again, back in that day, I'm sure you probably still can, but I would send cards to players and they would send it back autographed. So I have a bunch of autographed cards from players. And just that connection. My aunt got us tickets for Marv Levy's retirement dinner. So went there. I distinctly remember a story. I walked into the bathroom, and I was probably 16 at the time, and I'm washing my hands at the sink, and also next to me in the sink next to me is Andre Reed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're Andre Reed. I'm washing my hands, and it's so nice to meet you, and getting pictures with those guys. And so it just seemed like a different time. It was before, at least for me, there was no concept of we knew Bruce Smith was going to hold out, but he always came back. There wasn't really free agency. He didn't really know all the drama. Even with Jim Kelly, that drama wasn't talked about, him going to the US. It was just he's here, he's playing. There wasn't all this extra, at least not in my 16, 15, 14, teenage year world. There wasn't this drama around football that sometimes we see now.
Yeah, it was in even that squad for video games was so much fun. And that's a team where you actually the backups, Frank Reich and Kenneth Davis, right? It was Kenneth Davis, right? Wasn't he? Right.
And I'm a huge Frank Reich fan. I've always been a fan of his ever since he was, back for the Bills, and he started with Carolina, when they started their first year. So that first year, I was Carolina, their first year had 5 Bills players. Frank Reich, they had a bunch of other ones. So I was man, they're kind of my second team. just because they had guys I loved. So yeah, that whole team top to bottom was just really good.
Beyond good. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a
It's a
tragedy.
shame.
And obviously, you got the Bills now these days. For the last few years, I was convinced that the Buffalo was the best team in the league, not getting, and then obviously, not pulling it through. And I feel like now are you worried? Because
I'm
it
very
feels
worried.
like things are kind of going the wrong direction.
It's just I watch obviously as many games as I can. I don't have Sunday tickets, so I don't get all of them, but they're on TV fairly regularly. You watch and just go, why didn't you run there, Josh? Like, why are you not running this year? Which I don't want him to run a ton, but there's clear plays where he could have. Like, why is it 3rd and 2 and you're chucking the ball 30 yards down the field? Like, what are we trying to do here? We don't need hero ball. I have a 10-year-old and he knows every play. I go, just smart plays, Josh, just smart plays. Don't need big plays, just smart plays. And my 10-year-old's now saying, he's like, we don't need a touchdown. We just need a first down. Like, yeah, that's what we need. We just need to dink and dunk down the field. I don't need you to chuck this 80-yard touchdown to Gabe Davis. I just need you to make a first down. So I'm worried. I've been worried. I'm worried about Josh Allen's long-term health. I'm glad he's not running because I think that saves us a year or two because our window's closing. Von Miller's probably got 1 more year. Stephon Diggs probably has 2 more years after this year. Like, we're not ready to reload, and that worries me some.
Yeah, and it's to me the Bills, like it's easy to root for them. Not just the history of the franchise and everything, but it's a great. I mean, Josh Allen's easy to root for. So I mean, I got this jersey because he won me a fantasy championship a couple of years ago, right? So gotta love Josh Allen. Hopefully they just get hot. Hopefully they get hot at the right time, change people's minds on their outlook towards the end of the season.
One injury somewhere else can change things. Like if someone on the Chiefs gets injured or the Ravens, like that could open the window and the door for us to just move in a little bit. I think we're going to be a wild card team this year, so we're not going to get a home playoff game, which is disappointing and worrisome. But if we have to play the Dolphins, I'm not worried about them. Like, they're frauds. So it's just a matter in the second round, if we're playing at Baltimore or at Cincinnati or heaven forbid at KC, do we win those games?
It'll be interesting. AFC playoffs. I mean, it's been a blast the last few years. So much competition. So we shall see. So when did you first discover fantasy sports and fantasy football?
So I have a family league that I think is 23 years old now. So you're talking, what is that? 2000, basically right around 2000. It was internet age, but like what I consider like early internet, where there wasn't like Facebook, there wasn't social media, you didn't have all these sites. We still play on Yahoo. It is still standard, non-decimal scoring. It's the worst. But it's the family league. We have a trophy. You get your name on it. It's supposed to travel. Never leaves my uncle's house. But it's my 3 uncles, my mom, my stepdad, me, my brother, my sister, now my brother-in-law, my nephew. We just kind of rotate people in. So it's been a long time. But going back to the card day shops, it was, hey, I've got a Michael Irvin, and it's been 4 years. Well, I've got, a James Lofton. Who's better? Well, James Lofton, you look at the back of the card and had all the stats. Well, James Lofton's been really good for 10 years. Michael Irvin's been good for 4. Who's better? And we would look at the stats and go, I think this guy's had a longer history. So I think that's where that mentality for me was like, okay, is the new hotness better than the old consistent guy? And I started looking at that. And baseball cards back in the day had one of the sets had a weird system where you could like play baseball based on their stats. So it was just stuff like that. But really in like the early 2000s, late 90s, I really got into fantasy and started playing with my family league.
Nice. So when you first started consuming fantasy content, do you remember where you got it?
I was a magazine kid. I used to. I'll show you. I pulled one out for you. This is one I still have. This is 2016, and I have them going back probably 2010. Nice. I used to buy every magazine that was out there. I used to carry a list with me. And I would go to the store and be like, okay, got this one, got that one. I would go on vacations, family vacations, with a backpack that had 15 magazines plus a notebook, and I would just read them and write down stuff. So I looked at every magazine and I would read it, and then front to back multiple times. The one I showed you, I really liked because it had deep sleepers in it. Looked at strength of schedules. I would do my own kind of like. They had strength of schedule, so it was a good matchup. I gave them a +2, an okay matchup +1 equals 0, -1, -2, and kind of calculate score for quarterbacks for strength of schedule. I just read everything I could. I wasn't really like on the internet looking at stuff. It was just magazines, as many as I could find. I would buy them.
I love it. No, I had the same background. Is it? I didn't realize this whole world of fantasy content creators. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's different these days, but I didn't know it existed. I just I went off my own. instincts, knowledge, experience with football. Couple that with magazines and the rankings that were provided to me, and I'd make my own rankings every year.
Yep.
And then it really wasn't until like the commissioner. I was a fanatical commissioner without really,
Yep.
again, just kind of being aware of all the sites outside of the main corporate sites even existed. So I love that. That's where I came from with those magazines. Pick up 3, 4, 5 magazines each year and run. I probably wouldn't even look at the authors of
Oh,
each
I never
article or
looked at the
whatnot.
others. I couldn't tell
Yeah,
you who wrote any of the articles that I remember pieces of. I couldn't tell you who wrote them because it was
yeah.
just it. I have it in my book somewhere. And I'm looking through this one. I was looking through this earlier tonight. Like it's got stuff for my MFL, like my fantasy league. And I'm like, man, that website probably hasn't changed since 2016. It's the same. It's the same website, right? But I was just like, oh, I'm not going to play on a website. We play on Yahoo, and I just need the information. I don't need this extra website. It never dawned on me to go on the internet to look for more information.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, when I discovered this world, that's where I really kind of dove into, to meeting people and connecting
Yep.
with people. And I have no regrets. It's been special
Oh.
to discover such an awesome world out there. And, we'll talk a little bit about, the community in a bit. But what it is about the game of fantasy football that you love the most?
I really love the strategy of it. I love this, hey, I drafted this guy late because he may not be good early, but he's going to be good in the long run. I love the connection aspect of it. I love playing in leagues with friends and we can bond over that. We can talk trash. Even with the family, like I talk to my brother probably 3 times a year and it's literally mostly about football. My mom will call me once a month and it's how's work? How's the family? What's new in football? Like that's like it just becomes an integral part of our family and our lives and my relationships that I just love that. And I love that with the community now on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling that this fantasy football community we have of I can talk to someone and go, hey, how's your life? How's this? But hey, how's football going? Or hey, you really like this guy. I text Coop like just Dalton Kincaid trash all the time because he's so high on Dalton Kincaid and I have not been. I'm like, Kincaid sucks. Or hey, I can't believe these tight ends are going off this weekend. Like texting people just these little jabs or little like praises on football. I love that connection aspect of it. I'm all
That's
about
awesome.
connections. That's my driving force is like people. I'm a huge extrovert, so it's just like more people, the more connections, the better.
That's great. No, I love that for sure. No, so your primary league that you think of, is that the family league, or do you have another league that's outside of that that's like
I'm in a
your
dynasty
home
league
league?
that I consider my primary league. I'm actually
Okay.
trying to get out of the family league. It just feels bad to leave the family league because I'm just trying to. I am not I'm in a 100 league guy. I'm in 2 or 3 leagues, and so I have the family league, a dynasty league. I have another dynasty league with QB list, and then obviously my Scottish Bowl and Warrior Bowl and all these other ones. I was co-managing the family league with my cousin because he really wanted to get in. Then he got his own team this past year, so I'm still managing a team. But my dynasty team is really my primary league. It's got 3 or 4 friends, and it's a bunch of people I don't know, but now we're kind of friends and we trash talk, so it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like with the amount of research and analysis that you do, that
I can't do more. I can't do IDP. It's just too many guys. I can't deep dive that many players. I deep dive enough as is. I can't do more.
I love it. With your dynasty league, do you have live drafts, or is that all kind of, are you guys spread out?
We used to. So my preferred setting is keepers. To be honest with you, I prefer a keeper league because it balances the redraft and that dynasty aspect. There's a little extra strategy with keepers and their cost and how you play that in trades. So one league I used to be in a keeper league, they had a live draft. Once I moved to Wisconsin, I couldn't do it anymore. So I would zoom in. So we try to do a Zoom call or whatever with everyone, as many people in one place and a couple of us on satellites. So yeah, I haven't had a full live draft, in-person draft experience. I went to Scott Fish Bowl, Chicago this year. Wasn't drafting just to kind of hang out because I wanted that. I wanted to have this draft experience. So it's mostly Zoom, but it's still fun because you can, even though you're not in the room, you're kind of virtually in the room and you can still talk trash and, say, hey, hey, so-and-so, throw an Oreo at this person. Okay. You can kind of virtually taunt people. So it's fun.
I love it. I love it. So when did you first start creating content for fantasy football?
So I started in 1920, about 3 years ago. Well, I would say that's when I really started. I've been writing. I love to write. I've written my whole life, and probably 10 years ago, a couple were like, hey, I have a site. We're doing some sports stuff. Do you want to write some articles? And it wasn't really fantasy content. It was just like sports articles. So like I forget who it was, like came up with a new like face mask for the NFL. So I was like, scariest mask in history. So it's like, LaDainian Tomlinson with the visor, this goalie mask, kind of some fun stuff. Did some stuff on the Olympics. And then I really wanted to write stuff, and there's a site called pollsports.com. So John was the manager there. I was really using that. I said, hey, I see you have a blog, but you don't have anything on there. Can I write stuff? And he's like, yeah, if you want to write stuff, we'll put it on there. So I put 2 articles out on there, really liked it. And then a buddy of mine, Rich Holman, got me into QB List and was like, hey, they're looking for writers. I think you'd be great. You really have this passion for arguing your case, but also like writing it out and making a real logical sense to it. He's like, I think he was writing for the baseball side. So he's like, let's get you in. So really in 2019, 2020 was when I started writing kind of what I consider my full-time, part-time writing.
Nice. Now, I love discovering and sharing new fantasy resources. So you mentioned QB List. Tell me about Dynasty Pros Football, your work with Dynasty Nerds, and more about the QB List, and also the what you're doing with Front Office Pros.
Yeah, so let's start with QB List. That's where I got my start. So there is Pitcher List, which is the fantasy baseball side, and then QB List is the football side. So we do everything you would expect from a fantasy football site. We do sit start. So that's what I manage, is our sit start team. We cover every game, every player, every week. We also do what we call what we saw. So there's someone who watched the game and is already typing up an article, and that'll be out tomorrow morning on what they saw in this horrible Carolina Bears game. And we cover every game, and that comes out Monday. And then Tuesday, we get the Monday night game. So we're covering every game and go, hey, this is what we saw kind of beyond the box score. And then obviously we have our, waiver wires and our bust and our predictions at the beginning of the year. We have a DFS section. So really just kind of covers everything. It's a great community. They have a Discord, which is part of their premium service, which is, I love it because it's always hopping. It's a Discord that's got football, but it also we have channels for everything. So we have like a golf channel. So we play this golf game. We have a TV channel. So we'll talk Survivor. We have a movie channel. We'll talk. So there's like a new thread. Any movie comes out, there's a new thread of this is the movie. Here's some spoilers if you want to see food, whatever it is. There's something on there. Someone's talking about it. So that's QB List. I really enjoyed over there. It's a great site. Drew DeLuca is our editor-in-chief, doing a great job. I took over Dynasty Pros in January. Bob Miller's still our owner. Me, Nick Miller, Tom Harvey, we kind of run the site. Really focused on the Dynasty aspect of football, but we cover a lot of Devy stuff, IDP, but again, your typical stuff you would see at any site. So we have a trade calculator, which we're really proud of. We try to put out these Dynasty dilemmas, kind of like, hey, what should you do with Deontay Johnson? What are the pros? What are the cons? And then we kind of do some other stuff. So I put out like a Halloween article. It was like the 13 scariest players for Dynasty. Like, are they good? Or are they bad? Like, look, are they causing you nightmares? Just kind of some fun stuff. Dynasty Nerds is Dynasty Nerds, right? It's Dynasty stuff. I've been to the combine and the draft this past year. I'll go this year, kind of do some stuff with them for that. Just kind of go, this is what I saw at the draft. This is what I saw at the combine. This is who I like, who I don't like. And then Front Office Pros is a newer site. They do videos. So Steve and Joe, I've been doing some stuff over there. They're working on some cool stuff coming, but they do, they're your normal content videos. They do, Thursdays nights as it starts live. They do kind of buy now players. They do speed trading. And so I'm our growth and planning strategist, where I just kind of help them grow and connect with more people and kind of plan that back end of like, how do we get to where we want to go and what do we need to do? So they came with me. They stayed with me at the expo, kind of like they didn't know anybody. So I was like, hey, let me get some people on your guest. So I got some people that I knew would be at the expo to be guests on the podcast. They knew more people and just kind of introduced them to people at the expo and said, all right, go flourish and meet people. And, every night we get together in the room and just kind of debrief and really help them grow. Because again, I'm all about connection. So it was like, hey, how can I help you guys? And they've become really good friends. I talk to Joe and Steve, probably at least one of them every day. They're in the survivor pool that they run and I help run it. So it's just, they become real good friends through football. So I love it. And it's just a fun avenue to kind of help grow that site.
That's awesome. It sounds like you have a full plate doing all that stuff. I love it.
I do have a full plate. I don't get to write as much as I'd like. For Dynasty Pros, I'm doing a lot of editing of articles, but I do my weekly sit starts. I have a monthly article, and then I'm trying to I set birthday resolutions, not New Year's resolutions. So my birthday was in October, and I'm trying to do 20 extra articles this year between October to October. So I'm one down. I got 19 more to go.
There you go. That's awesome. Now, obviously, someone who loves people and loves fantasy sports, you must be a kid in a candy store at the expo. Tell me about your fantasy football expo experience.
Yeah, this was my first year. I've been wanting to go. It just has always fallen on my son's birthday weekend, so it's been really hard. But this year, they finally moved it up a week. It was great. Last year, so in 2020, 2, I said for my birthday resolution, I wanted to do 26 podcast guest appearances over the next year. And at that point, I had done 1. I did 1 at Front Yard Fantasy with Simon and JL and those guys. And I had no experience. And so I just started reaching out to people. And I did, I think, almost 70 over the past year. Just by reaching out to you. Like I reached out and said, hey, I want to come on. You're like, okay, cool. When? And you're like, next week. So the community has been great. So it was great to meet these people that I've done video with, that I've talked to on Twitter, that we've interacted with, that I'm in group chats with, and just kind of meet them in person. So yeah, it was great. It was almost overwhelming, even for me as an extrovert, because like there's so many people I want to talk to that you almost don't get to talk to people enough.
Yeah, it's a surreal experience. And I will say that each year you go back, it gets bigger and better, but at the same time you get more comfortable. It's more you're familiar with so many people. It's less of what you maybe experienced this first year of who I got to meet somebody. How much time do I get with this person? I got to meet this person. It just gets better and better.
And I didn't want to monopolize. Like I really wanted to talk to Scott Fish, but I didn't want to monopolize Scott Fish's time. So it's like, hey Scott, he kind of knew who I was. Like, hey, it's nice to meet you in person. If we run back into each other, we do or we don't. But shout out to Ronnie Evans. Like we talked a couple weeks before the expo, and he was like, "Hey, what are your plans? Like, what are you thinking?" And we kind of had a video call, and he was like, "This is what I'm worried about." I was like, "Well, this is what I'm worried about." Then we kind of debriefed afterwards. So I think I have a better plan for next year. Like, I will say this: anybody listening who doesn't go to the expo, go. Like, go do it. If you're a total introvert, find me, and I'll introduce you to whoever you want to. Like, I think that's great. Next year, I think I definitely want to like make sure I plan out my meals more and be like, hey, Kevin, can we sit down and have lunch on Saturday from noon to 12 or 12:30 or whatever it is, and just kind of schedule a little more of those intimate times. The best time I had at the expo was actually me and Joey Wright. We were at the bar at whatever that big bar is. We walked in, it was packed. And he was like, I'm just going to go back to the hotel. I was like, yeah, I'll walk with you. And we just spent that like 2-3 block walk talking about life and where things are going. And to me, it was like, man, that's what I wanted all weekend. I just wanted to connect with people on that personal level outside of football. I had a good conversation with Coop on the shuttle ride back after the party. Like, that's what I really wanted. So I'm going to work hard on doing that more next year. But it is a great time. It's just it's cool to see all the guys that you're like, oh my gosh, that's Kyle Yates. Oh my gosh, there's JJ Zachary. There's Matt Harmon. Oh, there's Scott Fish. It's like, man, they're just people. Like, they're just there. Like, you can go up and say hi. They're not going to like, there's no security like fending you off. Like, everyone's real approachable. Everyone's super nice. Ryan McDowell, who I saw at the combine, was like, hey man, how's it going? And my buddy's like, Ryan McDowell? I was like, oh yeah, I talked to him at the combine. Didn't realize it was Ryan McDowell. Like, I knew it was Ryan McDowell, but didn't realize like it's Ryan McDowell in his mind. But I was like, he's just a guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, and again, I mean, with the expo, there's so many different unique experiences. Bob Lung does such an amazing job. It's just a roller coaster of great moments, all creating an experience that you just want to keep going back for. So I can't wait.
And you want it to be longer. You just want the days to never end. But if you're one of those guys who just like, I'm tired and I'm not going to do anything, you just tired and go back to your room and just chill. Like, you don't you can be as much or as little as you want it to be.
For sure. Let's talk about the SFB Live experience that you had. You did that in Chicago, right?
Yeah. So I wasn't drafting. It was the closest one. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So it's like 2.5 hours down. Hoove from Hoove Tube was like, hey, you should go. And I was like, I don't know. And then Wendy Early was like, yeah, you should come. And I was like, all right, let me just go. Like, let me just suck it up. Talk to my wife. She's like, yeah, go. Like, go do it. Just drove down and got there and was like, Steven Johnson was running. I was like, hey, I'm not drafting. What do you need? He was like, I need this, and this. I was like, all right, done. Like, I'll hang up draft boards. I'll sell your stickers that come with raffle tickets. But I got to meet just all these people that I just had a great time with. I got to meet Jim Coventry and talk to him. I got to meet Andy Behrens. I got to meet Waz. Like, just hanging out with people and talking football. And people was like, well, who are you drafting? I was like, well, I'm in my 15th round of my, online draft. I'm just here to hang out. And they're like, oh, you came to hang out? And I'm like, yeah. And like, I knew a couple people. Like, I knew John McGlynn and JT and Nick Script a little bit from online. So I was like, hey, it's good to like see you and meet you in person. And I kind of have a relationship with you. Hoove came down. So it's just like making these, again, this start of making these in-person connections and going outside of Twitter.
Yeah, I think that Chicago would be a lot of fun. A lot of great people there. Yeah. Obviously, John McGlynn and his environment, right?
Yes.
Fantasy football drafted. What a guy. I love John McGlynn.
Well, and he had the Scott Fish Bowl, and he actually lined up his like 2 home leagues to be right after at the same place. So like they were getting done, they moved to the next section of the bar and had their own drafts.
He's a piece of work. He's a wonderful guy.
He is.
Just a wonderful human being. So love seeing him at the expo, obviously, but I can't imagine how fun it would be to see him in Chicago doing his thing.
Yeah.
Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. Get
All
to know
right.
you a little bit better. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of fantasy sports?
I mean, before I got into fantasy sport, I was pretty big into Dungeons and Dragons. I have the other side behind the camera here is a big table. I also have a lot of Nerf guns. I have almost 200 Nerf guns. I used to have them all. They used to all be Nerf guns. I took it down to make this podcast studio. I just collect them.
Nice.
I've got a 10-year-old son, so it's doing stuff with him, outside running around to playing football, frisbee. Anything with people is honestly something I love to do. So if someone's like, hey, do you want to do this? Like, I don't care if you're there. Like, there's people there. Sure, we'll go and have fun. Like, but I enjoy that anything that feels communal. So if it's whether that's Dungeons and Dragons, a Nerf battle, whatever it is, makes you feel like you have an experience with people is what I'm all about. Obviously, a lot of my free time now is writing and researching content. But
yeah, I imagine it sounds like it. What's the last TV show that you binged?
I put on TV a lot when I'm writing because I really enjoy it. The last one I binged like on a Saturday was probably Lupin on Netflix, the French show. It's season 3 came out a couple weeks ago, so I binged that on a Saturday. There's like 8 episodes. I really enjoy that side of like spy, caper, mystery type shows. So I binged that not too long ago.
Nice. Do you have an all-time favorite show?
When I saw this question, I was thinking, and there's shows that I love that I feel like either start out poorly or end poorly. Love Gilmore Girls, but it just ends so poorly, so I can't even start it because if you've ever watched Gilmore Girls, you start out and you see Dean, and you're like, oh, I love Dean, and you realize you hate him at the end. So I'll say Psych is the show that I consistently go back to every year, and I'm like, oh, this show still holds up from the first episode to the last episode. It's all really good.
Nice. Do you have an all-time favorite movie?
Ooh, that's so hard. I'll give you my top 5.
Okay, I like that.
Spaceballs.
Great.
When Harry Met Sally.
It's nice. League
of Their Own.
Solid.
For Love of the Game.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's good.
And I feel like I have to put a Star Wars in there, but I won't. I'll probably put a James Bond movie. I'll say probably Diamonds Are Forever is my favorite James Bond movie.
There you go. It's a great list. It's great. Do you have a favorite holiday movie? Obviously, holiday season's coming.
I'm not a huge Christmas fan in general, to be honest with you. Halloween's my favorite holiday.
There you go.
So I will say that if there is a movie that I have to watch on, it's Scrooged with Bill Murray. I think that's like quintessential like holiday movie for me. And for the record, Die Hard, not a Christmas movie.
No, you're okay. There you go. That's a take right there. Controversial for sure.
It is.
What do you love most about, or what do you enjoy most about living in Wisconsin?
Not a whole lot. Don't tell my wife this. I mean, I'm from the East Coast. It gets brutally cold here. Like I think it was like 40 today, and it's like the middle of November. Surprised we don't have snow. The cheese is great. Like we have dedicated cheese stores, which was foreign to me when I moved here. And my friend's like, oh, bring me back some cheddar. And I'm like, you have to be more specific because there's 18 different kinds of cheddar. I had a friend come out and was like, do you like sharp cheddar? He's like, sure. And I was like, do you like aged cheddar? He's like, I don't know the difference. I was like, well, you can get a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year, a 5 year, a 10 year, a 15 year, a 20 year. So I think we got a 5 year. And if you've never had like a 5 or older cheddar, as soon as you put it in your mouth, it just sucks all the moisture out of your mouth. And I can't do more than 5 years, but I got him a 10 year and he's like, I love it. It was just like, it's just so dry and crumbly that people love it or hate it. But just, I send cheese to people all the time. Like my buddy graduated from med school and was like, hey, I'm sending you a cheese box. We'll just buy like 6 different kinds of cheese, send it to them. I have notes in my phone. So every contact that I send cheese to, I keep notes of what they do or don't like. So I know which one to send them next. Because if you like a spicy cheddar, then I'll get you a spicy Gouda next time. And I kind of do that. So the cheese is always fun. Summers here are beautiful. We have a lot of lakes. We're right on the lakes, but the winters are rough.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure. Now, do you have a favorite cheese? Do you have a favorite flavor of cheese?
I really like a nice, like 3-year cheddar is probably my favorite. I'm not a real like fancy cheese guy. I don't really love anything else, but a nice 3-year cheddar is really good. They make some crazy varieties like blueberry cheddar. I've seen a chocolate cheddar, which is just gross. But a nice 2 to 3 year aged cheddar is really good. It has enough sharpness and enough crumble, but it's not like your mouth instantly is a desert when you eat it. So I like those.
Sounds good. Do you have a favorite beverage?
Lemonade, I'm a water drinker, pretty much straight. I tell people I drink pretty much clear or opaque liquid. So it's water, Sprite, lemonade is pretty much all I ever drink.
Do you have a favorite restaurant?
No, I'm a pretty, my wife will say I'm a picky eater. I will say I have a refined palate. I like chicken fingers, hamburgers, wings, pizza, like
the good stuff.
The stuff you can get everywhere. I will say every time I go back east, there's a restaurant out on the east coast of Philadelphia called Friendly's. It's like a upscale like chain diner, but I just love it. It's just this nostalgic feel for me to get really good chicken fingers and mozzarella sticks there. So like anytime we go out east, my wife knows I'm going there.
There you go.
Or
that's a good answer.
anytime I travel, I will find a Long John Silver's to eat at. I just like their chicken and their restaurant.
Okay. What do you have you been to Cane's?
Yes, we just got one in Madison maybe last year, and I go there probably once a month.
So you're it's a favorable opinion for Cane's?
Yeah, Cane's is great.
The Cane's sauce, I mean that's special.
It's good. My only issue with Cane's is they're slow, and I don't know why, because they only make one thing. It's just chicken fingers.
Yeah,
if you're listening, you've never been to Cane's, their menu consists of a 3-piece, a 4-piece, a 6-piece, or a chicken sandwich, which is just 3 chicken fingers on a bun. So how you can not have chicken fingers just ready and waiting, I don't understand.
I love it. Well, we don't have them yet, but they actually are coming up to the area sometime in the next year or two, I think, in the Seattle area. But like, I'm going to Arizona over Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We got some family down there, and our niece and her husband. Like as soon as we roll into town or fly into town, he'll have a box of cane sauce ready for me. Yeah,
we're getting a Buc-ee's here in Wisconsin soon. And I know that's like the big thing down south is go to Buc-ee's and get their pulled pork. So I'm interested to see that open up, because the closest one to us now is like Texas. So
that's exciting. I love it.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite a band or musician?
I will say I love 70s rock. So if I had to pick my top 3, it'd be Garth Brooks, the Eagles, and I love Elevation Worship. They're a Christian band from North Carolina. So they're probably my 3 favorite that I would listen to pretty much hands down all the time.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite place to go on vacation?
We're a Disney family. We've been to Disney World 4 times in 6 years, and we're talking about going back or maybe doing a Disney cruise. I am not a destination person. I'm a go-do thing person. So I might want to go whitewater rafting, so I'm going to go to West Virginia. Or like I want to see the Northern Lights. We're talking about maybe doing an Alaska cruise. I don't want to go see Alaska. I want to see the Northern Lights. I want to do that experience. This happens to coincide with that place. So whether we go to Alaska to see him or Iceland, like I just want to see the Northern Lights before I die. Don't care where. So, if we had to pick, it'd be Disney. I love going back to Disney every year.
That's great. Yeah, Northern Lights definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I think I maybe got a glimpse one time on an airplane. We were about to land in Iceland. So, but that's not that's not actually
that's not the same as being out in the open and seeing it. Yeah,
exactly. So I say it doesn't count. That's definitely on my list. So I like that. And then obviously with Disney. When's the last time you were down there in Orlando?
3 years ago. So right after Guardians opened.
Okay, so you have not Guardians at Epcot?
Yeah, we did Guardians, but Tron wasn't open yet.
Okay. Compared to other rides you've been, where does that Guardians ride rank?
I'm telling you what, I got super sick on it.
Oh no!
I have this weird like inner ear vertigo thing, and I was fine until the last loop around the planet. So I had my son who absolutely hates roller coasters, and he hated the whole ride. Because as soon as you take off backwards, he was like, and he had his head down. And then that last trip around whatever planet is, I got so sick. I literally got off the ride, fell over, barely made it to a bench. They were talking about calling like a wheelchair for me. I end up, when my vertigo hits, I just go dead. Like I can't move anything. I have no energy. Like I can barely lift my arms. So my wife had to get me to the Horizons Pavilion. I took a nap for like an hour. They did some rides, and that was good.
Unbelievable.
It's a great ride. Not as good as Rise of the Resistance, but it's a good ride.
Yeah, no, I would say that I did not expect that response. Except last time I asked someone about it, they said that they heard people got sick on it. And, we just thought it was the greatest ride ever. And so smooth and all that. But I guess that probably that rotation.
It's the spinning and turning that got me. Like the up and down and turning side to side just gets me.
Yeah. It's such a unique experience for a ride. So innovative. But I guess it could trigger certain people. So that there you go.
But if people haven't been on Rise of the Resistance, is mind-blowingly good. Even the third time you go on it, it's so even what's happening. Like I'm very much, I like spoilers to something. Like I've already listened to spoilers. Before you came out, I was listening to spoilers for the Marvels movie that's out tomorrow. I don't care about spoilers. I don't care how it ends. I want to see how it got there. I know where we're going in that ride. I don't know how they do it. And I don't know how they make it so seamless and certain things. And it just, the scale and how it looks and what's real, what's not. It's just so immersive, so mind blowing what they can do that it's just incredible. And same thing with Ratatouille is the same way. Like it's just this immersive experience where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm actually in it. But Rise is so much more because it's all life size. You're just like, I'm in Star Wars. And what I've heard is if you do the Star Wars Hotel, Millennium Falcon and Rise of Resistance play into the experience on the hotel differently, because the hotel is like a whole like murder mystery type experience that tie into those rides. So I really want to do that. It's just super expensive.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, no, Rise is definitely, it's an experience, right?
It is.
It's the greatest experience in the history of theme parks, in my opinion. I don't know how anything else compares, but I will say Guardians.
I don't know how they top it.
Phenomenal. Yeah, no, I don't know.
From what I hear, Guardians is a great ride. Rise of Resistance is an experience. I don't know how they top it. The whole Star Wars land. Did you do bounty hunting when you were there?
Yeah.
Me and my son did that for hours, and we loved it. It was just so cool. The way they've done everything there just is the gold standard for me for customer service, immersive experience, that whole 9 yards.
It's the Stormtroopers. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What is one thing that you're just incredibly grateful for at this time?
I'll tell you what, my wife has been super supportive over the past 2 years of me doing content. Like, hey, honey, can I go to the Chicago Live Draft? Yeah, go ahead. Hey, honey, can I go to the Expo? And she was like, you need to go to the Expo. You need to go and make these connections. Like I said, I went to the Combine this past year and the draft, and she was super supportive of like, yeah, you need to go. You got credentials, go do those sort of things. It's important. So I literally went to the draft. No, I went to the Combine, came back Sunday night, literally got home, had 30 minutes and hopped on a podcast. And I did like 6 podcasts a week because I was like, hey, everybody wants this information that I have. And she's just been super supportive. Obviously I try to do things at off times. Like they're asleep right now. It's 10 o'clock at night. They're asleep. But she's been real supportive of that. So I'm super grateful that she's allowing me to chase this dream. I want to make this a full-time career at some point. So she's allowing me to chase that. Obviously I can't just quit my job. I have a really good job at the University of Wisconsin. I can't just quit that to chase it, but she's allowing me to chase this as long as I keep that work-life balance, but allow me to chase a dream of something I really am passionate about, and we'll see where it goes. So I'm really grateful that she's allowed me to do that.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Now you mentioned the draft and the Combine. What were those experiences like?
They were amazing. Beyond what I thought they could be. The Combine I'll say this, the Combine's boring. It's straight up boring. The interviews are cool. So you get up in the morning, you go do interviews from like 8 to 11. You have a lunch break, and then you go in the stadium and you watch them work out from basically 1 or like noon till 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock sometimes. And you're just sitting in a stadium seat. There's no noise in the building. You have to have a headphone in to listen to Daniel Jeremiah. There's just no sound. And so, but what I loved about it was me. I took Steve Bradshaw, who was a writer for Dynasty Nerds. We ended up meeting a couple other people there, Ryan McDowell from DLF. And we were just sitting in the stands and kind of going, I had my headphone in and going, that was a 4.37. That was a 4. Like I'm reading off 4 times as Daniel Jeremiah is saying, because they don't announce them in the stadium. So that camaraderie, but you're just like, I'm sitting in the stadium seat for so long. I loved getting to know players more than just being players. Like I fell in love with Roshan Johnson there because he was just so vocal compared to all the other players. He just had this passion about him when he spoke. You're like, oh, I understand who you are as a person. Love that. And then the draft was beyond amazing. I was in Kansas City from Wednesday to Sunday. I didn't pay for food the whole time. The NFL feeds you, but I got to do some cool parties, did some exclusive events with Under Armour, went to this cool Trent Green's house party because they were just happy to have me there as media, which I'm like, I'm not really media, but I guess I am. Get to do press conference interviews, hanging out with people. It was me, Luke Sawhook, Tristan from Dynasty Nerds, Mike Miklius from QB List. I know a guy, JC Cox from Arkansas. He was there. We just kind of hung out and just talked football, and being in a room full of other football nerds was super fun. But just experience that I never thought I'd get to do. I never thought I'd get to interview these players, to be face to face and, get to know Brian Burns really well and get to know, get extra time with CJ Stroud or Zay Flowers to get to talk to these guys. So that was just really fun. I'll probably go back this year again. My best friend lives in Indianapolis, so it makes it easy. But even like going to Indianapolis, hanging out with Dave Heilman, Dynasty Dork, like we knew we were going. He lives in Indianapolis, like messaging him ahead of time and talking to him and just connecting with him while we're there was just fun to connect with people.
Yeah, sounds like a really unique experience. Something
It
that's
really
on,
is.
yeah, I would. Growing up, I would have died to do something like that, and
I am a
it's
draft
intriguing.
nerd. I take the draft off. Like before I would go, I would take those 3 days off. Me and my buddy, who we were in person, would watch it together. Now we would Zoom. So I literally have my laptop up. We do a competitive mock draft. I have my laptop and my wife's laptop with him on Zoom, plus it on TV. But I have to mute mine because he's behind. So we're like syncing up my TV with his audio for like 3 days straight. And just sit there and talk like he was in the room because this is the best we could do. And so I'm a draft nerd. I mean, I got to go to the Chiefs Stadium this year, interview Tyreek Hill, Michael Vick, RG3, like just do crazy things that like I have no right to be on the Chiefs field as a reporter, but I was there. Like, and just having that experience was something that just is, I'm so grateful for, but it's just so mind blowing to me.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, we are in the thick of the season, halfway through it. Almost. It's crazy, right? What are your impressions thus far? Have there been some players that have really disappointed you or surprised you in a positive way?
I mean, I definitely have 2 big disappointments. It was Miles Sanders and Najee Harris. I was just expecting more from them. Miles Sanders has looked old, which he's not that old. He doesn't have a ton of wear and tear. It just looks like that offensive line in Philly carried him last year, which was shocking to me. It looks like he's not even the starter now. Like it's Chuba Hubbard. Like if you're losing to Chuba Hubbard, like something's wrong. And then Najee Harris, like I thought the foot last year was the issue, and I think it's just partially him, but partially the team just is bad, and he's just been so bad. I've been just so disappointed in both of them, and I would have a lot of them in my leagues. So,
yeah, there's plenty of stories up with that, and obviously injuries. I mean, it's just been a crazy year.
It's been a lot. I mean, we've had 10 rookie quarterbacks start, and that's a record, and we could see 11 if Green Bay goes to Sean Clifford. So we have 10 rookie quarterbacks. When Tommy DeVito starts this week, it'll be 10 rookie quarterbacks starting this year. It's the most. I think we're already past the past like 4 years in terms of quarterbacks that have played. It's just crazy with injuries, especially at the quarterback position.
Oh, yeah, and to me, like, extending the season, adding a 17th game, and like that doesn't help. I don't know why we did that, but here we are.
Money.
I guess more football money, exactly. Can you name a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end that you're just really excited for to finish strong this season?
Yeah, quarterback. I'm looking at Sam Howell. I like his matchups coming up. He's got what I consider 2 good matchups the next couple weeks, an equal matchup. The problem is that his fantasy playoffs is really tough. He's got the Rams, the Jets, and the 49ers in those 15, 16, 17 weeks. So I don't love him for fantasy playoffs, but I think he's going to have a good weeks to get you there. So I really like Sam Howell. I've been a Sam Howell believer since he came out, so I think he's a good quarterback. Running back, I'm looking at Javonte Williams. Again, good matchups. I think he's got a fair matchup most of the way. I like him coming back off this injury. He seems to be getting healthy. Jaleel McLaughlin's no longer a factor. Like I think it's totally Javonte Williams on that team. The Denver Broncos didn't sell off pieces like we thought they would at the trade deadline, so it looks like they're still willing to like give it a college try. So I think they're going to feed him early and often. Wide receiver, I really like Michael Pittman. I think Minshew's been better than we expected. Really good matchups coming up, especially Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Pittsburgh. He's got Cincinnati in there. Fantasy playoffs, it's like Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Las Vegas. So I think those are all good matchups for him. I like what he's been doing. He gets a ton of targets. With Josh Downs being kind of banged up, Alex Pierce has been not good. I think Pittman could have a really good year. And I'm kind of liking Jake Ferguson at tight ends. He's a scary prospect because, we saw Dalton Schultz have a great year, and then Ferguson's been okay. But Peyton Hendershot got hurt. He's not doing anything. Luke Schoonmaker's not really catching on. So it seems like it's CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and then it's everyone else. So he's really the second on the team, so I like that for him. So those are the guys I'm looking at to kind of scoop up. I think they have some dynasty value as well, and I think you can scoop them up fairly cheap now, get good rest of the season, but also be set up for next year if you're playing dynasty.
Yeah, good analysis, good advice. And speaking of dynasty, you obviously do a lot of work in the world of dynasty. How do you attack the off season in dynasty? How do you prepare for those rookie drafts?
So I love trading. Trading makes fantasy fun. Like it's just my favorite year I ever had was a keeper year where I knew I was going to be bad, and I just traded. I made like 15 trades, and I ended up coming up with like a ton of picks in the next 2 rounds. I had so many picks in the next year's draft that the league actually voted to restart because they thought I was a shoe-in to win and there was no way they could win. So they opted to restart the whole system. I really look at it, and I do a monthly Dynasty Futures report where I look at their opportunities, how they've been, but then what the contracts look like. So I think come January, February, you got to start looking at contracts of who's a possible free agent, who could be leaving, and what that does for someone moving up, or they're going to bring someone in. So I was big on Khalil Herbert 2 years ago because, right, it's like, okay, hey, you pick him up now, then all of a sudden we have Montgomery's a free agent. Herbert should be good, which is what happened. Montgomery left, Herbert took over. He's just been injured, right? And they drafted Roshan. So I always look at that pathway to success. So that's why I start looking at it. I think it starts with contracts. I think people neglect that aspect of it of, oh, yeah, this guy's great, but hey, he's on a contract, or his quarterback's on a contract, and who's throwing the ball? The Jefferson versus Jamar Chase conversation has always been Chase for me because I don't know who's throwing the ball at Jefferson next year. Like, is Cousins back? Is it Dobbs? Is it a rookie? That lowers his value. So that's where I kind of start nitpicking. So if I could trade Jefferson to get Chase plus like a 4th rounder, I'll do it because I like Chase better. So I start looking at the contracts and that pathway to success and what kind of factors there might be. That's how I attack my offseason.
That's awesome. Now, great advice for sure. I love that. I love hearing that process. Now, I got a dynasty. I won the championship last year. Older team,
Okay.
older team. Got off to a terrible start this year with my opponent's scoring average just destroying my squad.
Yep.
So I had to pivot. I had a major sell off. Next year I'm going in with 5 first-round picks. I think 4 second-round picks. What's 2024 looking like for me in regards to prospects? Is it?
I think it's
going to be a good class.
It should be a real good class. It's going to be interesting to see now the league change that juniors that declare can go to like the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. So interesting if that changes some of these underclassmen's prospect. It's a deep quarterback class. So for me, I always look at tiers. So when I go, this past year was, okay, it's going to be Bijan, Stroud, Young, Richardson, JSN is that first tier. So if I can pivot and move back, so I had the 101, but I didn't need a running back. So I actually traded back and got all the way to 105, still got CJ Stroud, who was my 101, and picked up like the 110, a 2 something. So I ended up getting Stroud, Levis, Tank Dell, and Lou Schumacher, all for what would have been Bijan Robinson. And so I think I look at tiers and go, okay, what's the difference between this first tier, second tier, and where can I tier up and tier down and get more picks? So if you have, let's say, the 106 and you think that tier is going to be 5 or 6 players, maybe you tier back and go, let me just trade this for the 107 and also get the 108 and get 2 guys in that second tier and kind of tier up, tier down. That's how I look at it and go, where's that clear cutoff and who's undervalued and who's overvalued, and then go from there and kind of stake it out. And then I'm a big spreadsheet guy, so I've got spreadsheets of who's got what and who needs what, so I can kind of map that out and go, all right, this guy's taking a running back, this guy's taking a running back. Okay, I get a quarterback at 103. I don't need to be at 101 to get Caleb Williams or whoever my quarterback is. And then is Caleb Williams the 101? What's the difference between him and Drake May or Michael Penix or Bo Nix? And go, they're about equal, so I can trade back a couple picks, scoop up some late round picks or a young prospect. I was able to trade picks and pick up Kyron Williams as a throw-in last year, and he's paid dividends for me this year. So it's all about tiering up and tiering down for me in the drafts. That's how I look at it when I'm looking in that off season.
Well, don't be surprised if you hear from me come rookie draft season, because
we'll get on. I'll build out a spreadsheet for you, and it'll be color coded, and we'll make a whole plan of attack.
Oh, let's do it. I love it. So yeah, you win that championship. Yeah, I thought I could squeeze out another season of high competition. It just my fate was not there. It's something I had to pivot, and so I'm excited. I'm excited for the rebuild. Hopefully, it's not it's not a long time.
And you did the right thing, right? I think dynasty managers getting us like, well, I can make that push. And they pivot the wrong way. You could have went and go, well, just let me get one guy and make okay. I think dynasty managers get in this mode of like, I need to win now. Like, no, you can pivot and go to a rebuild, and look at you. You've got all these picks. Like, all of a sudden you'll come back and you'll be set for, instead of trying to win this year and win back-to-back championships, you could win a championship, take a year off, and all of a sudden win 3 out of 5 in the next 6 years. So you could be doing pretty good. So it's the right pivot to do, and I think people often miss that. That's a trap they fall into, is they do, I can just make a small move to get better this year, but they negate the future.
I love it. Well, I love Dynasty Talk. I'm excited for, for the NFL calendar is awesome because
Yeah.
it's such a roller coaster. There's so many things. A lot of people like the off season more than like the actual season of football.
Yeah.
Obviously I love the NFL season, but there's so many special things about the off season. And when you're in the world of Dynasty, it's a special time. So I'm excited for Dynasty season to really hit after the season winds down. And I'm sure you are too. It sounds like you really.
And it has changed how I look at how I make content and how I look at things. So there's been just that subtle change of like redraft content to Dynasty content and how I contextualize things and what my niche will be and how I frame everything has changed because I do Dynasty. So that off season is super super fun.
I love it. Well, I love your passion for Dynasty. I love your passion for fantasy. You've got a great story. Great rise up in this industry. I love the way that you went about that. It's so cool the way you've attacked the idea of getting to know people, meet people. Who along the way has really stood out as people that have really impacted you and your journey into this industry?
Yeah, I'll say I have 5 names on my list. It started with Rich Holman, who got me into QB list. So Rich, and then Eric Smith, who was our editor, like giving me a shot. I've never met Andy Holloway, but I've learned a ton from just listening to the fantasy footballers. Where we message each other on Twitter every now and then, like just listening to the way he carries himself and he presents, and you hear his thought process has really helped me. I'll say Nick Script has been the biggest cheerleader I've had, even though he didn't need to be. Like one of the crowning achievements for me is I was leaving Scott Fishbowl draft. And he literally got up from his seat, came running to me, was like, hey, hold on real quick. And he's just like, hey, I see what you're doing. Keep going. And it was like, I needed that. Like, I didn't realize I needed that, but like, he's just the way he puts out content, the way he hustles with still having a job and a wife and kids. And so he's been great. And then I'll tell you one thing. I met a guy, JC Cox. He's a radio host from Arkansas. Met him at the combine just randomly. I was sitting down on a bench or like a platform, and he was there, and we just struck up a conversation. He doesn't do fantasy content, but he knows football. He's been doing it for years, been going to the combine, covers Arkansas State in various sports, but knows a lot of these like GMs and coaches from that football team. And so I talked to him at the combine, ended up seeing him at the draft. He came and joined us at the draft, like just talking to him and talking to someone outside of the fantasy space, but still in the football space really changed my thought process on how I look at things, because I think we get in this very narrow fantasy focus. And he really showed me that there's this bigger overarching football aspect of things that really makes things. So when you go, why did the Bears take a tackle? Why did they trade back? Well, they traded back because they wanted this. Why did the Bills trade up? Well, they must be trading up for a tight end. Why did they do this instead of that? Well, because he fits this system. And it was just this whole other world. So JC really taught me that. Just talking to him in general, like he's an older guy, rock band, realtor in his real life, but just the way he talked about, being grateful. I've learned so much just hanging out and talking with him at the draft. He really has just helped shape how I feel. So JC Cox, radio DJ out in Arkansas, covers Arkansas State, name that nobody knows, but literally he's so plugged in. Like we were sitting at the draft, he goes, don't say anything, but the Eagles just traded up. And then like literally 5 minutes later, like the Eagles have traded up. And he's like, yeah, my buddy texted me like a GM. And I was like, and he just knows, but he doesn't brag. He just kind of goes, this is what it is. This is why they're doing it. And just had this different mindset. And it really just helped me kind of reshape how I think about things.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really cool. And yeah, you're right. You get a more balanced vantage point on the game, which, obviously helps. Now, you obviously, again, as a content creator, you've learned a lot over the last few years. What advice do you have for people that are aspiring to get more involved in creating content for fantasy football?
2 things. One, just start doing it. Like I hear a lot of people like, oh, I hated writing in high school. Like this is not high school writing. It's not a MLA format essay. Like you can write, you can have some personality. So just start. If you want to do videos, just start and ask for help, because you may go, I don't know what I'm doing. But if you're like, hey, is this article any good? Send it to some people. Like reach out. Like the fantasy community is super open and willing to help. Like there's tons of people out there. That's one of Joey Wright's big things. Like, I'll help whoever it is. And I'm the same way. Like, if you reach out, like, hey, can you do this for me? Like, sure. Like, let me look at it. I help people all the time. Like, can you help me with my resume? Yeah, let me take a look. So just start doing it. And I'll say there is no right or wrong way of doing this. I didn't come in with the story of, I was in the CBS Listener League and I know this guy and this guy helped me out. Like, I just started writing, and like I've had to do everything by myself. Like I don't have connections with, I listen to, me and Joey are pretty good friends. Like Joey's like, I knew Dave Richard, and he's become like, I don't have that. I just kind of do it all on my own. And like, I make mistakes and learn, but building those connections. So it's like, don't think you have to have some big name backing. You don't have to work for a major site. Like you can just, if you put in the work and the effort, people will notice. If you take the time out to connect with people, you'll be surprised of who you get to connect with, of who you can reach out to and go, hey, what do you think about this? And they go, yeah, here, I'll help you out. I met with Matt Deutsch from Better Sports Networks just the other day. I was like, hey, we met at the expo, exchanged like talk, got his number. We just text about stuff. And I was like, hey, can you look at my resume? I just want some help, like making sure it looks good, from someone who does that on a higher level. And he was nice enough to do a 30-minute call with me. I reached out to Will Tigey from Better Fantasy and was like, yeah, he's like, let me hook you up with Ed Williams. So I met Ed Williams through him. It was like, I shouldn't be talking to these people in my mind because I'm this little guy, but it's just, we're just all people. And there's no difference between me, you, and whoever is the best expert in your mind. Nothing we do is proprietary. We're all taking the same stats that are available, and we're just trying to take all this information, gather it up, and put it out in a logical sense. So don't think that you're not as smart as X, whoever that is, and Matthew Berry and JJ Zachary's, and like they have no proprietary information that you don't have. All they do is they have experience and exposure and reach, but doesn't mean that you can't get there. You can get there if you just put the time and effort in, and don't think that you can't. And they're never too late to start. I didn't start till I was 37. So, and I'm 40. Well, I guess I started when I was 39, 38. I'm 41 now. Like you can do it. You don't have to be 20. You don't have to be, 18. You can do it at any age. So just start and reach out to people, and don't think there's a right and wrong way to do it, or a right and wrong way, a pathway to get there.
Outstanding advice. I mean, that was perfect. I love it. Well, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to share before we close things out?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we're in a point in the season where you kind of know where you are. If you don't know if you're making the playoffs at this point, you're probably not making the playoffs, and I think you need to learn to pivot. But I think people are always there. If you want some advice, reach out to people. Like find them. There's a great community. I love this community of football. Again, I'm all about connecting people. So if anybody's listening to this and they're like, man, I wish I could talk to so-and-so, my DMs are open. Like reach out to me. I will do everything I can to connect people. I'm all about connecting people with whoever it is. So, one of my biggest tweets ever was during the Podathon. It was like, hey, call your shot. Who do you want to follow you? And that kind of blew up. And, people are getting, athletes to follow them, or wrestlers, or whoever it is. Like, I just want people to connect. I don't care. I care more about people winning and people doing well than my own thing. Like if I lose all my fantasy leagues, but I help one person win, that makes my world. Like that's what I want to do. I want to connect people to whatever they want to be that makes them happy. If that's winning championships, if that's connecting with the person, if that's reaching a goal, I'm there to help.
That's awesome. Well, tell the listeners, the viewers, where they can find you, Dustin.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter X at the DUnit13. So THEDUNIT 13. You can find me Dustin Ludke on Facebook. I have a content page. I think it's the DUnit 13 on Instagram and Blue Sky and Threads, and I have all those. I don't really do a lot on, but Twitter's the best place to find me. Like I said, my DMs are open. Any content I put out, I'll put out on there. I tweet. I just try to be open and available to help people as much as I can.
Awesome. Well, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. Had a ton of fun. A lot of things to enjoy in this conversation for sure. So thank you for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure to have you, my friend, and I cannot wait to see what's next for you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.